Hello, Hockey World. Today is Monday, April 10th, 2017.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Agello, and this is the HockeyBuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com, where we are broadcasting from my couch. And we're joined today by the voice of the Nashville Predators, Mr. Pete Weber. Good afternoon, Pete.
Good afternoon to you. And I tell you, wasn't this the dream of all of us getting into the business, to be able to do things like this from our couches rather than take a train into a studio?
You're right, Pete. And to continue that dream, it was to sort of do it in my underwear, but I'm not doing it in my underwear, but that was the dream.
Yes.
Okay.
and the couch is brought to you by PETA. But it's actually leather, so not. Well, can I just say? I mean, I love animals. I'm for the ethical treatment of animals, but this thing about the octopus in Detroit. I mean, come on, really.
I say this. I'm against unethical treatment too. They probably would have been sold anyhow, so there's really nothing you could do about it.
Yeah. So okay. It's moving day, the day after the regular season. You know, in football and basketball, there's always a lot of news that comes out the day after the season ends, and today is not any different. Lindy Ruff, it was announced after, I believe, 3 years in Dallas, is not having his contract renewed by the Stars. GM Jim Nill announced that. Pete, there's a lot of talent in Dallas. There's a lot of offense in Dallas. But Russ and I have looked at that team over the last few years, and the thing that's puzzling about them is the goaltending and the defense have never been there for Dallas.
Right. And this year, here's what they did. They subtracted some veteran D-men and then expected that two-headed goalie monster to get the job done, which they just did not do. I know Lindy's always wanted to go after goals, but it helps a lot if you have the guy behind you can stop it. Now, the Preds played their next to last game. They're in Dallas. And they pulled Antiniemi after 2 goals against on 8 shots. And then Kari Lehtinen came in, and it ended up being a 7-3 hockey game. I mean, I know you're playing out the string. The so-called, as Buffalo Bills fans understand, the running for the bus mentality. And that's what I pretty well thought I detected at the American Airlines Center there on Thursday night. So, and now Lindy Ruff, for more Buffalo sports fans, he wasn't fired. It's like in 1976 with Jack Ramsey and the Buffalo Braves. He just wasn't rehired. But I don't think – now there's a 4-year run. Now the story in Vancouver, I think, is a little bit different to me.
Yeah, well,
I will rebut the one thing. Jack Ramsey did go on to win a title somewhere. Lindy's never won a title.
Portland, right? Was it in Portland?
Yeah, Portland. They were down 2-0. The Trailblazers were, and the Blazers came back and won the next 4. And a great Maurice Lucas boxing match there with the Chocolate Thunder.
Yeah, but Lindy hasn't won anything. And my feeling is, even though he runs this up-tempo system, which I guess some feel should work in today's NHL, he doesn't know how to run the defense. That's been pretty clear for the last year or two. He's had young pieces he could work in. He's not really embraced that. So he tried to rely on veterans and sort of toughness on the blue line and speed and flow on the offense, and it just didn't work. And I'm sure he's going to get another job, but I think that's buyer beware now, unless he sort of changes the way he coaches a little bit. I think he's got to augment that a bit.
I woke up this morning thinking he was going to be the next coach in Florida, and wondering how now Dale Talon was just, of course, reanointed this morning as well as head of all that is South Florida hockey. But, guys, are you hearing for Dallas, and I'm really hearing a strong rumor of Kurt Muller, if the Canadians don't have that long a run?
Well,
I've heard the rumor, but it makes sense.
Mike Heike reported this morning the top 3 candidates were Muller, Ken Hitchcock returning to Dallas, and Gerard Gallant. Yeah, I would actually throw in Desjardins because he won a Calder Cup with the Texas Stars. You know, Nill knows how good of a coach he is, and to transition to that one, Russ. I use your words. He was a scapegoat. That team was an utter, unmitigated disaster based on the direction that the ownership decided that oh, we're going to make the playoffs. We have to go to make the playoffs because we have the Sedins and we've paid the Sedins almost $7 million a year. So we can't be a future team. We got to be a now team. And all their moves were predicated on that. And to me, that's management, that's ownership, and Desjardins is being screwed.
Yeah, I think it's just sad for him because the fact that they stayed in it so long was a credit to Willie Desjardins, I always felt. But again, coaches get in this business and they know that they're not always fired for the right reasons. That's just the way it is.
Right. Rationale does not work. And I think since the Predators franchise began, there have been roughly 250 different coaching regimes. And this is less than 20 years, guys. So that gives you an idea right there.
Yeah. I mean, now, Pete, you mentioned the Dale Talon news, and you know, I've been kicking the Florida Panthers all year because I mean it was basically, you know, we're gonna give the management, you know, we're gonna give the analytics crew down there the say so with that organization, and to me, this year was a disaster for them. I mean, okay, injuries did play a part. Huberdeau being hurt, but Russ has said, change over as much of the defense as they did, make the signings that they did, and expect that team, you know, their owner says we're going to win a Stanley Cup in 3 years. Hell, the way things are going right now, you may not make the playoffs in 3 years.
You guys remember the draft in 1998 in Buffalo where Art Williams said, this guy, this young man we have just drafted number 1 is not the Michael Jordan of hockey. Instead, Michael Jordan is of basketball. So stupid pronouncements get made from every now and then.
True. But, you know, here's the thing, and I'm not bringing it up anymore, but I get that the owner was excited. And even that day we said, okay, look, this is ridiculous. But the bad part is they are no closer today than when he made that proclamation. And that can be the hard part about hockey, because in hockey, you're either building to get to the cup or you're trying to rebuild, but the middle is huge. The middle area that sort of swallows teams up is huge, and it's hard to get out of that.
Yes, it is. It's very hard to get out of that. But who has benefited? Well, I'd have to say the Vegas Golden Knights have benefited getting Scott Luce to run their scouting organization. Who knows? They might end up with Gerard Gallant behind the bench as well. Might. And let's see what all shakes down out of that. But, yes, they gave themselves a huge comma in the midst of just after a season of great progress.
Yeah.
Now, go ahead, Russ.
I was going to say, and besides the moves on defense, like they knew they had an aging goalie. Well, now that goalie may have aged a little quicker than they'd like. Yeah. Jaromir Jagr certainly ran out of gas at the end of the year. No slight to him. I mean, but that's just it happens, and he happens to be an older player. All those things happen. Now they got players back from injury, which was great, but they didn't really ever make that great push other than the one winning streak they had. And a lot of teams have done that this year. The Flyers went on a 10-game winning streak. That was their season. Like, that was the main part. Same thing with the Florida Panthers. It's like the best thing the Florida Panthers can do is let Dale Talon do his job, and they stopped him from doing it. Yeah, now, what stopped him from doing it, Pete? Was it analytics? We're all led to believe that. Like, why would you stop a guy that has won championships and built championship teams? Because certainly that Chicago team was aided by Dale Talon. What would make you as an organization stop him from doing his good work?
An owner who has an idea. And I think that's what happened there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the name of Lindy Ruff, as you said, Pete, has been mentioned in connection with that with Florida. But there's also been, there's been some indication that they're looking to go with a younger coach to go with the younger team. Mm-hmm. And if that's the case, then a guy like Travis Green, who's the coach in Utica right now, who's been well regarded, he may be in that mix. Now,
let's stop there though for a second. Because this is something, I don't know if this boggles the mind of Pete. I know certainly things in baseball do, but what boggles the mind of Russ Cohen is the fact that it's so hard to break into this league being a young coach. A lot of other leagues take on young coaches. The NHL would rather recycle a lot of these coaches, and I don't get it, Pete. I don't.
No, I don't either. Now, so who is the next John Cooper? I think that should be the target. That's what you have to look for. Now, I don't know a lot of guys who have their law degree and played lacrosse more than they played hockey. But and I don't know that that's necessarily the qualifications you look for, but that's the type of young coach you want.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, right now there are 4 vacancies: Florida, Dallas, Vancouver, and Vegas. We may have more and there's talk about Doug Waite not coming back as coach with the Islanders. Now, Pete,
just to go on that one, just to be fair to Doug Waite, when he took the job, it was pretty tentative as to he was really just doing the organization a favor. Sure. So I don't think it has any indication of like the team or the situation or anything. I think he was probably going that way no matter what.
I think he did a pretty good job. I mean, they lost Tavares with a week left to go in the season, and they didn't get eliminated until the second last day. So I give him a lot of credit. The other one, and it doesn't sound like anything's going to happen. Now, by the way, Kevin Cheveldayoff came out and said that Paul Maurice has his full confidence. I think Maurice's contract is up, but they're probably going to renew his contract.
Yes.
But the place where there's a lot of hubbub going is right here in River City, Buffalo. I mean, a lot of stuff about Dan Bylsma. I don't think he's going to get fired because he's got 3 years left in his contract, Pete, and they're already paying Rex Ryan not to coach. So I don't think the Pagulas are going to pay Bylsma and Rex Ryan not to coach. The question is whether Tim Murray's in trouble here.
That's a great question, and I wonder about that too. And he's blamed himself, has he not, publicly, for not building a strong enough D?
Yeah.
I think if they bring in Antipin, Mike, it saves Murray's job, and I think that's why they're probably going heavy on him. And I think that's probably what's delaying any kind of announcement here is because they've got a guy in the KHL they've identified. They're trying to sign him, and if they get him signed, it will help their blue line. And I think that's the thread right now that's holding him in there.
Yeah, but the chilling effect, Russ, might be of the NHL not going to the Olympics, as these KHL guys may not come over to the NHL because they can play in the Olympics for Russia, whereas the Russian NHL players may not be able to because the IIHF won't let them. So
that's fair.
Yeah. Now, talking about the Sabres here, I mean, this was not a good weekend for Jack Eichel. Not only he was not happy at the locker cleanout press conferences today. He was, according to Mike Harrington, he was clearly furious. He said too many guys in the rooms are simply happy to be in the league. Part of the culture change. That's part of the change that needs to happen to the culture.
This is what I love about Jack Eichel, by the way. Those kinds of comments from a second-year player makes my heart warm. It does, because this is what you want. And it's not on Dan Bylsma. It's not his fault. Dan Bylsma can't do everything. He can't motivate everybody. Players have to do it too. And when you have a guy that wants to do it like that and motivate like that, it's fantastic for a locker room.
But also Eichel at the end, and this happened late yesterday because Edmonton played. I think they played on the coast.
Yes.
Leon Draisaitl gets 2 points. And by getting those 2 points, Jack Eichel falls out of the top 10 in the NHL of points per game. And that costs him a $2 million bonus. That's just cruel. That's just hurtful.
It really is.
I'm supposed to feel bad, though. He'll make that $2 million back. I'm not really worried about it.
Yeah, but Russ,
come on, Mike.
I know he's going to make it on his new deal, but that's $2 million. That's a $2 million coupon that's there. Are you kidding me? Give it to me. I'll take it.
I can't feel that bad.
Okay. Now,
them's the breaks.
Them's are the breaks, and it's unfortunate that happened.
Yes.
But one thing, as we're talking about Jack and his locker room cleanout treatise, if you will, that reminds me so much of another young guy who was a pretty good captain, Michael Beckett.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. The contract holdout with the Sabres. I mean, that changed the course of the Sabres.
Yes, it did.
Because Hasek eventually left too, but with him, the holdout and the money he was asking for compared to now is nothing. I mean, I think it was $3 million for 4 years, and he ended up getting that when he got traded to the Islanders. But that trade destroyed the Sabres, I think.
Well, it certainly did. It took a long time to recover from it. Absolutely.
Now, a couple notes here, and then we're going to get into our Western Conference previews. Russ, you were at the game last night, Brian Bickell's final game, and I saw the video. I mean, it was great that the crowd in Philadelphia cheered him, knowing it was his last game, and the fact that
at the beginning when they boo everybody from every team that ever comes in, except for maybe Jaromir Jagr this year. They didn't boo him, and so that was nice. Then Lou had a nice little video presentation for him in between the plays when its TV cameras weren't on for the people in the stands, and that was nice. And the fans got to acknowledge him. They gave him a standing ovation. That was great. At the end of the game, he fist bumped everybody, including guys on the Flyers. And I'll tell you, it was a special moment in the locker room because you can't be such a hardened media guy and not be touched by what was going on there. The whole locker room really cared about him. I just put an article up on Sportsology. I interviewed Sebastian Aho, who told me that he learned English from How I Met Your Mother on television, which was great. But he also said we won this game for Bix. And he's a rookie, right? And this is how it's affected him even as a rookie. And being in front of Bickell, he tried not to cry. He partially cried. He was amusing himself with it, how touched he was. But, he hoisted the Stanley Cup in Philly in 2010. So that was a big deal to him. Even though it wasn't his only cup, it was his first. And the crowd was so great to him, and it was his last game. And he scored his only NHL shootout goal in that game. And actually, he divulged to us that the coach the day before, Peters, came up to him after the game and said, I should have used you in the shootout, and didn't. So he got to correct that mistake, which as a coach, that's a nice thing to be able to do. And it was fantastic. After that, I made sure I posted that soundbite quickly so hockey fans could understand how special guys in the sport can be and the sport can be.
Yeah,
great story there. Absolutely.
That's great. Charlie McAvoy, first round pick of the Bruins. Because of the injuries, and never let it be said that game 82 is meaningless, because Alex Ovechkin freight trains Brandon Carlo into the boards. He's concussed. He's going to be out for at least the beginning of the series against Ottawa. So now the Bruins sign Charlie McAvoy, and he will be in the lineup for game 1 because Torrey Krug is also out. Russ, we've seen him play at the World Junior. You saw it, firsthand. I think he can handle the NHL.
No, he can handle it. I saw Gabriel Carlson handle it against the Flyers, and even though he was a -3, he looked pretty good. Seth Jones had admitted in that game, hey, you know what? Just too many goals went in when we were out there, but he didn't blame the kid. These kids, when they come in now, if they're good skaters and good puck handlers, the pro that they play with can handle the rest. They can guide them. They can do it. He's got Chara to guide them. So at least that top pairing will be good. I don't worry about McAvoy because he is a really smart kid. He does know how to play, keep it simple. But he's also a guy that's opportunistic. And I think it could help the Bruins because without Krug, they are going to need extra offense from the blue line. Because let's face it, Chara's not giving them much offense anymore. And so this could actually be a little bit of a shot in the arm for the Bruins.
Pete, the final game of the regular season, like I just said, sometimes people think it's meaningless. Well, last night, if Anaheim doesn't get a point, and believe me, a lot of people in Canadian media are snapping their fingers and saying, damn, it would have been Edmonton versus Calgary and Anaheim versus San Jose. And instead, because Nate Thompson scores a goal late, Anaheim gets a point. Now they're playing Calgary, and we'll talk about that series in a minute. But then now Edmonton plays San Jose. And even though Thornton is out, I still think that's a tougher out for Edmonton than – it'll be a bloodbath, the Battle of Alberta. But I think San Jose, the battle-tested Sharks, will be a much tougher out for the Oilers.
Well, I think that Mark Spector is the big loser in this. He's the one who wrote the book, The Battle of Alberta, and he told me he was ready for a paperback updated version of that had this come to pass. So that's unfortunate. But I was watching my buddy Bob Miller. That was his last NHL broadcast last night, and watching that with a heavy heart, but also a happy heart because Bob is going to be able to go off and do what he wants to do and not wait until June or July when the email comes out with the NHL schedule for the next year to see when he can do it. But that was a tremendous battle last night. And, talking about coaches returning home, and Randy Carlyle is a changed man back at the bench now with Anaheim. And there maybe weren't not as many there as when he departed a few years ago. But I was wondering, in the playoffs, it's the games in Anaheim last year, the first round for Nashville, and I see this guy sitting up in the press box, and it's Randy Carlyle. And I go, Randy, what are you doing? Oh, just watching the games. Just watching the games.
Yeah. Pete, I'll tell you something. He was a changed guy in Toronto. It was just you remember when he got hired by the Leafs, the reputation was his nickname was Krusty Carlisle. He was not a crusty guy in Toronto. He treated the media great, and it was just the team, it was the management, it was the decisions that they made that were so bad in Toronto that killed things. Let me just touch quickly on the East. The Leafs do win on Saturday against Pittsburgh. They get into the playoffs. They needed a point against Columbus. They are up 2-0. They give up 3 goals, and now they play Washington. I think that's.
I think you still buried the lead here, though. Wait, before we do the East, I have to ask Pete this question because to me, this is the one thing that has plagued Anaheim now for a couple of different coaches. Who's the number 1 goalie there, Pete?
That is a great question, and the way he's performed down the stretch, I think it's Bernier.
Well, I don't think I would be very hesitant about using him in the playoffs because you have to admit, regular season and playoffs are completely different animals.
Oh yeah, I agree with you there.
But he clearly has Carlisle's confidence because Carlisle used him last night, and that was a key game for them. That was like who we're going to play in the playoffs, and he went with Bernier. So
I'm just saying, I've seen Anaheim fall for this before.
Sure.
And when they had Anderson and Gibson, they did it. And I thought it was Boudreau's fault. Now I'm thinking it's a problem in the organization. Like they just can never identify their number 1 goalie, even if it looks like they have it. Heading into the playoffs, it looks like they're going to go with the hot hand. I mean, I don't know. I don't think you could win a Stanley Cup that way. I mean, that's just my feeling.
Well, so Jaguar is not available. That much I can tell you. So now Gibson was anointed 3 years ago as the man for the future. I mean, from the time he came off with that, with Phil Housley coached the juniors to the World Gold, and had Seth Jones on that team too. So I'm a little bit surprised in how that has not happened. But it seems to me Randy loves the hot hand theory.
Yeah.
Just to complete the East. So the Leafs, they were tied with Boston. They needed to finish ahead of Boston to play Ottawa. Everybody in Toronto wanted the Battle of Ontario, like everybody wanted the Battle of Alberta. They don't get it. It's going to be Washington in the first round, Boston versus Ottawa. Now the thing the Leafs have to worry about is Frederik Andersen gets sideswiped by Tom Sissino on Saturday. And Pete, I put up a picture on Twitter Sunday morning of basically the James Reimer hit on Brian Giunta and the Frederik Andersen hit on from Sestito. It's exactly the same thing. They're both at the top of the crease. They both come across. They both elbow him right in the head. And these are infractions that can be avoided. But I think in both instances.
Let me ask you this, Pete. While we look at a disturbing picture of Eck in a chair.
Our hero, Patio Furniture.
What's wrong with you guys? What's wrong with you guys? Why are you working today? What's going on, man?
Yeah,
Well, some people don't make millions and billions of dollars.
The luxury of being an internet blogger.
Yeah. Now, I'll let you talk in a minute, Eck. I wanted to ask Pete, though, do you feel there's been too many cheap shots, targeting with these last couple of games of the season to possibly affect the way the playoffs are going to go? Because it seems like teams were going after certain guys, hoping they don't have to face them in the playoffs. Didn't it seem that way, Pete?
Oh, it certainly seemed that way to me. Absolutely, Russ. And let's just say I don't think that it was a case of Brad Marchand getting targeted. that was one guy there to be certain that's off the entire course that you were going there. But yes, I do agree, and I think that, and I loved the story Terry Chris told me once of the best way that Fred Shero taught them, the Flyers in those days, to go after goaltenders was to slide in feet first like Maury Wills, to look like you had just lost your balance. I haven't seen that subtle.
Tell people, thank you for saying that. I tried to tell people that on Facebook yesterday. They were like, well, I don't understand what you're talking about. It looks very innocuous. I said, that is Tom Sestito's talent right there. That's his talent, to make it look innocuous, but do it on purpose.
Yes.
Yeah. That was a shame. That really was a shame. That I was telling Mike last night, I thought that was the problem. Well, anyway, I just wanted to say hi to you guys. I am in Longboat Key with my in-laws, and can't really see, but if you look back there just a little ways, you can see, well, there's the ocean.
Tough living, Eck. Tough living.
Yeah.
I was there during the bye week, Eck. Had a great time down there.
Oh, really? Yeah, this is wonderful. So I come down here twice a year to be with my in-laws. So it is a vacation right now, and so I was like, you know what? I'm going to go do a podcast for a second. But no, I just wanted to say hi and, and rub it in a little bit. I thought I should. And
thank you.
And thank Pete for coming on today.
Glad to do it, Eck. Glad to do it.
I really appreciate it. And I'll be back tomorrow with all kinds of picks and predictions. And I was a little upset I wanted to say to Pete, I was really upset about that last Predators game. That was a heartbreaker. My gosh, they're so close to getting away from Chicago. That must have been crazy.
Though in a way, it must have been fated. It must have been the fates of the hockey gods wanting a third Predators Blackhawks matchup in 8 years.
Yeah, no, I know. And if you're gonna go through anyone, go through the best, right? So
exactly.
And I'm sure that's what they're saying, and I'm sure that's a good thing. And it's exciting, and I've always been a big fan of that. And the good thing is they have. I actually think that for what it's worth, I'll do my Predators preview soon. But I actually do think that PK Subban may be better suited to play against the Blackhawks in some ways than Shea Weber. So that's going to be an interesting little twist.
And that last meeting was when Shea Weber was hurt in the playoff series early in that series.
Oh, I remember. Yeah, very well.
And then Mike Fisher was injured shortly thereafter and not back.
That last meeting was crazy because that wasn't the series where the Predators jumped out to 3-0 leads in the first couple games.
Yeah. And then, of course, the one they'll never forget, though, Eck, is Game 5 in 2010 in Chicago. They have the lead with time running down. Already, as Lou Nolan would call him, Dan Hamwee had been slammed against the backboards, and he called him that consistently, but by Marian Hossa. Yeah. So Hossa should have been ejected from the game. He stays in the game, gets a major penalty. Then Marty Erat doesn't eat the puck, decides to pass to Jason Arnott, who called for it, turns into a breakaway, game-tying score by Patrick Kane. And then who comes out of the penalty box and scores the game-winning goal?
Oh, yeah. That was, oh, my gosh. Yeah, this is, in a way, all you know is that it's going to be so exciting. That building's going to be hopping. It's going to be amazing.
I will give you decibel readouts.
Look, teams always have to go through other teams,
That's right.
Patrick Ewing always had to face Michael Jordan or Hakeem Olajuwon. Like, that's just the way the leagues are. You're always going to have these obstacles.
Well,
the interesting thing to me is, the Predators actually have one of the better records against the Hawks in the conference, as you know. I was doing the last 10, and the Hawks have won 6, the Preds have won 4, which is pretty good for a lot of teams in the Western Conference. They're actually the only teams that have winning records against the Hawks are in the Eastern Conference. There's 2 or 3 teams in the Eastern Conference that have it. But I think so. It's going to be amazing. And the honest goodness feeling to me is that the Predators, should they get through the Hawks, which is a big should, of course. I like the second round matchup better in this division than the other for them.
Yeah, I think Peter Laviolette's going to have to rein it in a little bit though, because you can't trade scoring chances with the Blackhawks. That's going to be the key.
No,
that wasn't Laviolette last time, right? That was still Trout.
No, it wasn't Laviolette last time.
No, but
the last time Laviolette played the Hawks in the playoffs, we remember that pretty well.
Yes.
That would have been
the goal that no one saw.
Yeah.
But
I was there and I didn't see it.
But the one thing that the Blackhawks, they're getting their players back at the right time. Anisimov is, he may even play in Game 1. If not, he'll be back early in the playoffs. They've survived without him as their number 2 center. Crawford had an injury; he's back now. They're coming into the playoffs relatively healthy, Pete, and I'm fairly sure that the Preds are as well. So it's going to be 2 healthy teams, and the Blackhawks have won 4 or 5 games against them this year. But I think this is going to be this is a tough first round matchup. I really think so.
It certainly is. Now, Peter Laviolette, his first year of his coaching was the 2015 series, first year of his coaching Nashville, and in that series, if you might recall, the salary cap machinations that went on. Oh, yeah. Patrick Kane was put on long-term injured reserve and just returned in time for the playoffs. Boy, did he look feeble in that series. He just looked horrible.
Yeah. Right, yeah. He looked like he had been injured for a long time, right? He came out just destroying everything. He is Mr. Playoff. He is. You don't go overtime. You really just have to shadow him. He's crazy in overtime in the playoffs. But
it's really a lot's going to ride on Pekka Rinne, as always. But really, for this series, he might have to get a shutout or 2 to have Nashville advance. That's just my feeling.
You want to know how infuriated some people were, Pete? The speculation that year was Kane was going to be out until the conference final.
Right.
Yes.
And the most
Oh, yeah.
infuriating people were people in playoff hockey, fantasy hockey pools who didn't bid on Patrick Kane because they thought he was going to be out until June, and then they got him for $5, and then he probably led the NHL in playoff scoring that year.
Or the guys who got into pools and pay no attention to the news and picked him up anyway, and they were the big winners.
Yeah,
they were the big winners. I know the ones that would have been me probably at that point. They no, I know that you're absolutely right. I actually think the opposite of you, Russ. I think the Preds have to get into a shootout series. I think they have to. I think.
Oh no, no
way.
way.
Huge, but no, I honestly, to me, the key to being the Blackhawks, and this I've talked to so many people out there over the years, and I brought it up before, but key to being the Blackhawks is their defensemen don't like to turn their backs and go deep.
Yeah.
If you can throw the puck in deep, they will throw the puck around the boards. You can get your defenseman pinching and keeping it in. They will give the puck away. That's the one thing that that Keith and Seabrook just don't want to do. And Oduya too. They don't want to go. The Preds will do a lot of dumping and chasing. It's a fast Predators forward group. They'll get in there on them quickly and they'll hit them. And the Preds, because the Preds like to hit. So this is how in the past that's how they beat them in the games I've watched, at least, is they get out to they get inside Crawford's head.
Yeah, but this is the playoffs. Like it's a different thing. And
yeah, I'm not buying it. It's like saying I want to get into a goaltending battle with the Montreal Canadiens. I don't want to play a fast and loose against the Hawks.
No, I don't either.
They'll gut you.
I don't know.
Yeah, they'll gut you.
Go ahead, Pete.
Well, we'll have to see how that turns out. I had the feeling that they do like the idea of the old Fred Sherrill against the Bruins, sending in Bobby Orr's end, and ultimately that's going to wear him down. Same thing was done later on with Raymond Gort.
Exactly. No, and that's the truth. And you'll see. I mean, this is what you'll see. You'll see a very physical series.
Physical is different. I agree with physical.
Yeah, but I think, and of course, Rennie's got to be great. But I don't think you can play, too conservatively against the Blackhawks and expect to win.
I'm not saying play conservatively. I'm just saying don't press the foot on the gas and fight for the whole game and expect to keep up with Chicago. It's just not going to work.
I mean, it's
Laviolette know how to do that.
Yeah, it's one thing to play a speed game against Chicago. It's another to play, sort of balls out offensive against them. You do that, you allow the counterattack, and you got guys like Kane and Hossa and Taves. They will kill you that way, and they've done that consistently over the years. So I just can't see. I'm not saying it's going to be a 2-1 close checking, Guy Boucher defensive struggle type of series, but I think if Laviolette tries to go full throttle,
I'm worried if my game plan is like I'm expecting to win these games 5-4 or 6-4 against the Blackhawks, I'd be worried.
Right.
Yeah, I think they're going to try to play much more like they played against Edmonton on a couple of occasions this year.
Yeah.
Where they kept everything in front of them, and the league's leading scorer had one shot on net in one of those games.
Yeah, that's good.
And,
I agree with
and that's the way to play it.
And that last game against Edmonton especially was really impressive. I mean, McDavid had the one quick goal.
Yes.
On a breakout, but besides that, the Predators were all over them. I mean, the thing is, I'm not saying that you're going to play 1987 Edmonton Oilers hockey, but I do think that it's a 1 versus 8, and the way Laviolette is he's going to sit there and he's going to say, we're going to go for it. We're going to go for it. We're going to play to win. We're not going to worry about playing not to lose. I think that's just how I see it with him usually.
With Ryan Ellis playing the role of Sandis Ozolinsh, remember 1994?
Oh.
Eighth place San Jose Sharks beating the Detroit Red Wings. Yeah, then there you go. Oh, yeah. Ak, we're going to review the other 3 series if you want to stick around.
I'll let you go.
Okay,
guys.
cool.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go, but I appreciate it. Thanks for it's great seeing you, Pete. Thanks so much again for jumping on.
Good seeing you, and keep the sand out of your toes.
I'll do my best. Appreciate it. Talk to you guys later.
See ya.
All righty.
That is Eklund from an undisclosed beach in Florida. No, okay.
Actually, before we review there, I have a question for Pete.
Sure.
This is the Vladimir Svoboda situation, Pete.
Yeah.
I was very against the way this all went down. It wasn't as bad as Peter Forsberg jaking it all year with a injury and then coming back for the playoffs. But this is like a years-old agreement that all of a sudden they could just fire up and it's okay. Like, where else in the world can you get something that's like a 3-year-old written agreement that's just sitting there and basically not doing anything? You could just pick it up and sign it and all of a sudden walk into the playoffs. Like, American players can't do this.
Right. I agree. I mean, it's like you have to go through waivers. Can Sobotka, would he pass through waivers? No way.
No way.
And I think that's what he should be subjected to.
Yes.
No, Pete, straighten me out here. When Radulov came back, didn't he come back after the trade deadline, or was it before?
Just before, or even with it. And he still had an existing deal. So he was simply honoring that.
And he came back to burn that last year. That allowed
This wasn't even an executed deal. This was an arbitration offer.
Yes.
Yeah, well, right. I think it was actually an accepted arbitration offer, but then he never signed the deal, or he agreed in principle, but he never signed the deal, and then he went to the KHL. So yeah, it's a loophole, and we should talk about this series. You know, Pete, you've seen these teams a lot more than Russ and I have. Minnesota, 106 points.
Yeah.
St. Louis, 99 points. Minnesota was the best team, or one of the best teams in the league, and they had an absolutely disastrous last 6 weeks. Devin Dubnyk had the worst goals against, or worst save percentage, in the league since March the 1st. But I still think Minnesota, they got a little dozy because they really had nowhere to go other than first place in the division. They finished in second. I think that they're still that dark horse, but I'd have a little more confidence that they were playing really well going into the playoffs.
I think they're that dark horse too, and I think that Devin Dubnyk, who played all of 2 games for the Predators a few years ago, he is still one of my favorite stories in the league. He was a guy that was tossed on the scrap heap. He got dealt off to Montreal, went to Hamilton, and then Sean Burke, I think, is the guy who has to be credited most with resurrecting his career in Arizona, and what a job he did there. And now, I mean, when he was acquired by Minnesota, even to this time, and let's take off the last 5-6 weeks, the best story I think in the league, and the best turnaround of a career. Absolutely fantastic. I think he's much closer to bouncing back to what he knows than we probably might expect going into the playoffs. I think St. Louis is going to have a tough time with them.
Yeah, I think St. Louis is really – they're going to depend on Jake Allen staying hot. St. Louis's offense has been there and it hasn't been there, and that worries me for them. They have great defense. I get it. I think the one great addition for Minnesota is Joel Eriksson-Ek. He's clicking with Zach Parise. He's making Zach Parise look better again, and I think that's going to put them over the top, because if people didn't see Eriksson-Ek, what he looked like in the World Juniors, he was like an NHL player playing against those guys. I thought he was going to contribute points in this series too.
I thought he was a man against men there. Yeah, I really did. And also Parise's getting healthy again too.
Yes.
And he's a very dangerous factor when that happens.
And I know that Boudreau tried to limit Ryan Suter's minutes this year as opposed to the previous years. He wasn't playing 30 minutes a night most nights. They started giving guys like Scandella and Spurgeon and Brodin more ice time. So maybe he'll be fresher when it gets to the playoffs. But I think it's going to come down to Dubnyk being the pre-March the 1st Dubnyk and not the post-March the 1st Dubnyk.
Yeah, I think he needs to be somewhere in between. I think with the season Michael Granlund's having, and now Zucker's healthy too, he gets clutch goals. I like Minnesota in this one. I do. St. Louis just seems like they're in the middle of a transition phase, and I don't hold out a lot of hope. I think it could be a long series, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But I don't hold out a lot of hope that all of a sudden St. Louis is going to pull out a great playoff run here, starting with Minnesota.
Well,
unless Vladimir Tarasenko becomes John Druce reincarnate. Right. If he does that, that's another story altogether.
I'm sure John Druce is very happy with that statement.
Chris Kontos. Let's bring up Chris Kontos.
Yes.
But
the first game in Tampa Bay Lightning history, a hat trick. A fan throws a hat out onto the ice at the Fairgrounds rink, and he gets ejected from the building. Phil Esposito had to go out and bring the guy back in.
Jeez. I'll say this. I have to give Mike Yeo a lot of credit in St. Louis, because a lot of people thought, I mean, after they moved out Hitchcock And then after they traded Shattenkirk, people thought that this team was not going to be as good, and they played great in March. They had a great last 6 weeks, so they're going into the playoffs with momentum. When Minnesota's not, so if you use that as a determining factor, then St. Louis.
I think the regular season is fool's gold.
I do. I think it's a completely new season.
At the end of the regular season, for like the last 2 weeks, I think we've been looking at fool's gold. I do.
Now, we touched on it briefly before, but Anaheim, 105 points. They get the Calgary Flames. Calgary probably wanted Edmonton because I think they probably had a better chance. This is not a good matchup. I think it's 22 games in a row, Pete, that Anaheim has beaten Calgary in Anaheim. They've won 4. They won 4 of the 5 games in this season. I like Calgary a lot. I love the youth on that team. Monahan is great. So is Gaudreau, and I like Sam Bennett. And the defense is pretty good. I don't like the goaltending, and I know that Russ's reservations about Bernier aside, I think Anaheim has got enough to at least get by Calgary in this round. I won't make my prediction until Wednesday, but I like the depth of the Ducks. And the guy who's not talked about, you talk about Kessler, Getzlaf, Perry, Ricard Raquel is the guy. He's the scorer. He's the big scorer on that team.
He's the guy who stepped up. And, of course, the disappointment when you come down to it, you take a look, Ryan Getzlaf no longer has a regular right winger like he used to have with Corey Perry. Now, does Corey Perry come back to life in the postseason? If he does, really watch out. But I know one thing. The scalpers in the province of Alberta desperately wanted Calgary and Edmonton, without any question. Imagine the money that they've seen, like Jack Eichel, go out the window.
No question. I like this series. I think that Calgary, with the addition of Tkachuk now, are definitely more formidable. He's got to rein it in a little bit, though. He can't start attacking players. He's got to sort of just play his game because he's been really good in junior playoff runs, and I don't think being in a pros it's going to bother him. So I think that really helps him. But I think the challenge for Calgary is Anaheim's going to grind them. That's what they're going to do. They're big, they're experienced, they have a better defense. And they're just going to try and hold on to the puck and grind them, watch out for the mistakes and capitalize. And that's going to be a hard thing for Calgary to overcome.
What about the loss of the guy that they were supposed to trade earlier this year, Cam Fowler?
That was the only chink in the armor that I was going to bring up, Pete, is the fact that now they're deep enough organizationally on defense. I mean, Shea Theodore scores the winning goal in overtime yesterday. That guy doesn't look out of place. I mean, they got Montour, they got Theodore, they've got enough depth on the blue line that they probably can get by Calgary. But you want Fowler in there because he's had a great season for them.
He has, but they do have enough. But they have enough.
They have enough.
This is an uphill battle for Calgary. It's not impossible though.
The other series, the final series of the 4 in the West, is the Edmonton Oilers finally breaking through, getting into the playoffs. And they face the San Jose Sharks. Now, enough about the plaudits for Connor McDavid. He's one of the best players in the league. There's no doubt. He gets 100 points. This is big. This is bigger than Connor McDavid versus San Jose. This is the entire Oilers. Russ, we talked about one thing. Cam Talbot was the most overworked goaltender in the league. I think he was like 75, 76 starts.
Yeah.
That's my only concern. I mean, I think Edmonton's got the offense to win. Their defense is improved. The only thing I'm concerned about is Talbot getting tired.
Yeah, no question. And it's not like he's as young as people think he is either. He kicked around a little while, but the thing is, I do think they're in a good situation. I do. I think Talbot will be okay. They have more defense than they used to. McDavid's coming off a 100-point season, which is impressive as hell.
Yes.
Draisaitl's playing as good as you could ever hope Leon Draisaitl would play.
Yeah.
Imagine if Everly and Nugent Hopkins actually started contributing on a regular basis. They'd be dangerous. I look at it and I say, you know what? This is going to be a long series because San Jose is getting older. I'm worried about the age factor for San Jose a little bit. Do we think Martin Jones is as good as he was last year? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I'm totally on board. And I'll be honest, I just put in my ballot for the Hockey Writers Association for voting for the awards. I had Cam Talbot as one of the all-star goalies. Now, if you'd asked me at the beginning of the year, if I thought that was going to happen, I probably would have said no. But so he could really be the difference maker in this series. He really could.
He could.
Every hockey writer from Huntsville, Alabama, voted along with you, Russ.
Yes, there's no question they did.
Yes.
The one concern on the San Jose side, Pete, is the fact that, I mean, we don't know about the status of Thornton. I mean,
Right.
it doesn't look good. It didn't look good when he got injured, and I haven't heard anything since. Couture might be out. I mean, I'm hearing some things out there in social media that he may play in game one, but that might be a complete ruse. You don't know. I mean, if they lose, that's two of their top forwards, and you know that Edmonton is going to put up points. You know that they're going to score. So San Jose is going to have to be able to score in kind to be able to compete with them in the series. So if Thornton and Couture are out, that puts a crimp in San Jose's offense, I think.
Certainly does. And, Couture got injured in a game here in Nashville, pass from Patrick Marleau that went up and caught him in the mouth. And that was a scary, scary sight that night. But they definitely need that. Now we know Pavelski will be a horse.
Yeah,
in the playoffs. He simply has been. He's one of them. I guess he's more like Seabiscuit. He's a smaller horse, but he's certainly, and he looks a lot smaller once he skates away from you too, to the movie there. But he is the best deflector of the puck in the league.
Yeah.
He's going to get a little guy going to get in front, and he is so deft with that. But the guy on Edmonton that I like second most, without any question, and not merely because he's of German extraction, but is Draisaitl.
Yeah.
Draisaitl has been a tremendous, shall we say, wingman, and literally a wingman, but also a wingman in terms of, I think, helping Connor McDavid make his way through the league this year.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead, Russ.
No, he's lived up to the billing of the German Gretzky. He has.
Yeah.
The one thing
better than Kuhnhackl.
Yeah.
I mean, and Russ said it before. I think one of the keys to Edmonton advancing and getting further is getting production from that second line, because right now they've had Draisaitl playing with Maroon and McDavid. The number two line has been Lucic with Nugent Hopkins and Eberle. If they can get consistent offense out of them,
It's gotta get hot.
Yeah, then that takes a little bit of the weight off of McDavid. But
I'll tell you what, though, for San Jose, the one thing for San Jose that is a saving grace is if they're going to get to play their kids like LeBanc and Meyer, you know what? That could help them, because LeBanc's been adding a lot on their power play especially, and San Jose is good at drawing penalties. And so they may be able to do that and get a younger Edmonton team to take undisciplined penalties. Guys like Nurse, he's prone to doing it. We'll see how that works out. That could work in their favor.
Yeah, we know Maroon and Lucic are well disciplined. But this is the question I have for you. This is the question I have for you, Pete, is the fact that Connor McDavid, and it's impossible to catch him. He's probably the fastest guy in the league. But Connor McDavid, he's going to be the target. That how stars get treated in the playoffs. Sidney Crosby gets beaten up every playoffs. Can Connor McDavid withstand that punishment? Will they put somebody on him, like Jannik Hansen, who maybe could keep up with him, and he beats the crap out of him? Can he get through that? Because to me, that's I think the concern that Edmonton has to have.
To me, I understand San Jose has signed Mr. Manning from Philadelphia, is having his appearance changed surgically, and that would really get into his head if nothing else, would it not?
Sure it would.
That is the question to ask, and you're very correct in answering that question. And how much will the Oilers be able to restrain themselves when they know they have to protect him?
Yeah.
And the name you bring up right away there, Milan Lucic, is, I would say, the first worry part of that for Tom McClellan.
I think at the end of the day, if you are playing against the Edmonton Oilers and you're coaching, you're like, look, McDavid's going to get his points. Just don't let him get the game-winning goals. Don't let him beat us at the wrong time. If he gets a goal or two, don't be down on yourself. He gets it on everybody. And I think if you play it that way, they're better off, because if you try and key on McDavid, I think that's a mistake. I think to think you're going to shut him down or shut him out, it's not going to happen.
I don't think we could get Guy Carbonneau and Bob Gainey in their prime to come out and do that.
Yeah, because you know what? Bob Gainey wouldn't be able to keep up with Connor McDavid. No offense to Bob.
No. But he would have some way of Velcroing himself to him, I know.
Yes. He would have been holding him back would stick a little bit for sure.
Yeah, no, and Craig Ludwig would be out there blocking every shot with his shin pads.
Yes, now Ludwig would still have a job. There's no question because he would still be blocking shots.
Now, one last thing here, Pete. In the East, we talked about the Western Conference matchups.
Yeah.
What is your favorite matchup in the East? Because mine right now, looking at the 4 matchups, I can't wait to watch Pittsburgh and Columbus beat the crap out of each other.
Well, you already have pulled the one I was thinking of right there. Secondarily, though, I would go because I think it has the potential of being very entertaining, the 1-8 in the East. I think that Washington and Toronto could be extremely interesting to watch, to see how those kids react on the Maple Leafs. I mean, what they have on their defense score, their oldest D-man is 26. I mean, so there's not exactly a wealth of experience there. So we can't say they're in their dotage now, and they have one of the more fearsome forces to try to contain in that Washington Capitals offense.
You know what? If I'm the Leafs, I am sending Nazem Kadri out there with Ovechkin's line and just say, listen, Nazem, I know we expect to get a certain amount of points from you. Upset this guy.
Yeah.
Oh.
Guy off his game.
Well, no, I mean, Ross, I'll tell you right now, the matchup is going to – and Babcock has been a matchup coach all year. The matchup against Washington is going to be Kadri against Nicholas Backstrom and Komarov against Ovechkin. And Komarov and Ovechkin were friendly. They played together in the KHL during the lockout. But that didn't stop Ovechkin from concussing Komarov when they came back to the NHL.
Right.
So,
I would mix – to be honest, I would flip that only because I don't think Kadri can do that with Backstrom, but I think Ovechkin can be taken off his game mentally by, trash talking him.
Believe me, Komarov can trash talk him in Russian and Finnish and Estonian.
He's good at that, but I don't think Kadri is good enough to cover Backstrom. I think that's the real issue there, where I don't think anybody can cover Backstrom. Like, I just don't, so I don't think that's going to be all that successful. I'm looking forward to the Rangers Canadians because there's going to be a grudge factor. We all know about what happened with Chris Kreider and Carey Price the last time. They're going to be showing that video 12, 13 times a game. It's a different coach, though, now, and Claude Julien is a puck possession coach. That is really the difference between – that is completely opposite of the way Alain Vigneault runs his offense, and that could be a real problem for the Rangers. I think Shea Weber is going to be a real problem for the Rangers. I think the way that Montreal and Marc Bergevin at the trading deadline has been building his team to play a team like the Rangers, to slow them down with big, strong, dirty players. There's no other way to put it. That's what they've got now. I think that's going to be a big factor for them. And, Max Pacioretty is another guy who I voted on my all-star team because I think he's largely forgotten in Montreal. He's just, he's just this guy that goes about scoring his goals. I think he had like 30 goals this year, but he's healthy. He's rarely ever healthy for the playoffs. And I don't think there's a problem with Pacioretty right now. And I think these are problems. And look, Lundqvist looks like he might be over the injury, but he's not 100%.
Yeah.
He's definitely not.
He hates playing in Montreal.
And he's playing in Montreal, and that's another issue. And Price does play well at the Garden, and the Rangers don't play well at the Garden. So, so this is like, their Rangers' last 10 games, the Garden stink. So this is going to be an interesting series. It could go 7. It wouldn't shock me if it does. But this is going to be one that goes back and forth. And again, I do feel like I do have to do that public service. If you have New York license plates, don't park near the Bell Center. You will be sorry.
Just like Pat Hickey with his Quebec license plates parking in Philadelphia a few years ago. Yeah.
Well, Pete, I really appreciate you coming on the show. We're going to have Kevin Allen tomorrow to talk about the Eastern Conference.
Great.
Yeah, we're definitely going to get you on as the playoffs go deeper. And then in the summer when Eck takes a day off in the Jersey Shore, we can have you on and talk about baseball. But
we can do that.
Yes.
But one last story for you guys to be careful with the Montreal series. It was a team family Christmas party at Montreal captain Max Pacioretty's home. I don't know if you heard this story or not, but the day after, Alex Radulov called Max, and he said, "By any chance, have you found my teeth? I left them someplace in your house." And I was in Montreal a couple of weeks after that party, and they still had not been located. So, guys, check out Alex in post-game video sessions and see if all the choppers are there.
he's making enough that he certainly should have a replacement available.
I would think so.
He needs that new contract, Russ. He wants that. He wants that big money. He wants that 8-year deal. I don't think he's going to get it from Montreal, but we'll see. Thanks once again for Pete Weber, for Russ Cohen. I'm Michael Agello. Thanks for watching, and remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.